Thank you. Jason, what's the deal like making me cry before I have to come up here and talk? That song was played at my dad's funeral, and so every time I hear it, it always reminds me of my dad. And so it's really like special to hear it today. So to be able to come up here and speak with all of you and then just know that my dad is still watching us and just the power of that connection. You know, there is, like as Rosalie was saying, there's just one power. And so welcome everyone. I'm Reverend Nikki, but you all know me, so I'm so happy to see you here today. So Reverend Dr. Michael McMorrow is in Apple Valley and speaking up there. So I get the privilege of speaking with you all here today. So thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity. So our monthly theme is the journey of becoming. And last week, Reverend Dr. Mike just really gave us this inspirational talk about surrendering to I listened to it again. It's so powerful. So this week, we're talking about the joy of becoming. And I got to steal some notes from, who is it? It's Cheryl Bell and Linda Joy Ayers from the Las Vegas Centers for Spiritual Living. They prepared the notes for today's speech. I mean, I used a little bit of it, but most of it's my own stuff. So when I think about the joy of becoming, I really go to the joy of us awakening to who our divine self is. It's not so much the joy of becoming because we already are this person, but it's really waking up to it. And I must say, I was really procrastinating about writing this sermon today because when I think of joy of becoming, I really don't think of joy. I think of a lot of struggle, stress, strife of becoming who I am today. And so it really took me some time to really sit down and focus on what I really wanted to speak about today. I was talking with my friend in London. I know I've mentioned him before, and he's 33, and he had this amazing opportunity to come here to America, but it kind of fell through. And he was having doubts as he was excited about it, but that little doubt, it's kind of like being on an airplane, nervous to fly and keeping your foot on the runway. So if we have doubts, the plane's not going to take off. We got to get our foot back in the plane and just commit 100%. There's a lot of future fantasizing, like, oh, once this happens, I know that life will be better, versus living right here in the now. So I remember blaring my music when I was younger. I mean, I think I listened to music 24/7. My mom, I woke up to music, I fell asleep to music. Music was all I had. I just really listened to it. And so after I got done Zooming with him, I got in my car to go work out, and the song, ironically, my car was on an 80s station, and the song by Def Leppard came on, and it just flashed me back to that time when I was in my early teens and 20s by Def Leppard. And the lyric is anybody out there, anybody there? Does anybody wonder, anybody care? Oh, I just got to know if you're really there and do you really care? And I would go into the woe like, oh, there's no one here. I'm all alone. And I would listen to the song and I would blast it and like, oh, it's so tough. I can't believe it. And I would just listen to that song over and over again, feeling alone in my shell. And this song just fed into that. So I think as many of you know, I had a bunch of surgeries as a baby. And as I was being wheeled into the operating room one time, I was really scared. I think it was when I was about 5, I think 4 or 5 when I had that one surgery. And I remember being surrounded by angels. And the angel said to me, it's all good. And all of a sudden this peace fell over me. And then as I hit teen years and everything happens, I think sometimes as children we know that we're connected. And then as we get older, things happen and life kind of gives us these challenges, teen years, school years, and then we kind of have this divine amnesia. We forget how connected we are to the source. And in college, I remember reading The Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. It was my first, I want to say, spiritual book. And I just remember reading it and like devouring it. And then I started reading a bunch of books after that. Then I would say, so then the seed started to grow. I'm like, there is a source. I think I always knew there was a source because of that experience as a child. But like I said, it was like a little spiritual amnesia. Then about 10 years ago, I was working in the men's prison my very first time. And I just remember I was so scared going to this prison. Like, oh, these men, what have they done? Am I going to be safe? But after I left that workshop, we walked out of the prison after 2 days of this intense workshop. And my friend Mary Kate, it was her first time too. And we did what's called a completion sharing. And we were just standing in a circle. And we just looked at each other and went, wow. We couldn't say anything else besides, wow. Because the emotion and the experience just had changed us. And there weren't any words to describe. So wow is without words is what I came up with. Because I was really, wow. We couldn't speak. There was that quiet connection, I almost want to say. And I remember driving home it was up past Fresno, so it was about a 4-hour drive. And the first hour, I was in my car in complete silence for the very first time. Now, remember the part about me having the radio on 24/7? We might flash back to the 80s song by Depeche Mode, Enjoy the Silence. I just didn't want to hear any noise. And I feel like this was the first huge shift in my life that I felt like I was leveled up. Like all of a sudden that was that moment where I really felt that a huge connection to source, just kind of like this energy just surrounded me. And it was very powerful. Just knowing and just listening to that silence. So when I think about this topic about us, the joy of becoming, there's kind of like two different parts. Well, there's many parts of our lives, but there's that part where we're creating when we're in our teens, 20s, early 30s. As Richard Rohr, he has this book called Falling Upwards. And as he talks about the different phases of our life, in the first part, we're trying to build this container. Who am I? Who am I as a human being doing? We're kind of like a human doer in our first phase of our life, kind of organizing, getting stuff done. And then the second part of our life, we are the human being, and we're kind of filling this container with what we're meant to hold inside of this container. I was talking to my friend in London, and he was saying to me, he's like, you've had demonstrations of faith. You know that there's faith. You know that it's possible. And he's like, I don't. I just, maybe that one time that happened, maybe. But I haven't had this demonstration. And when I think about it, I remember when I was in my 30s, I didn't have any demonstrations either. But as I step back and I look through my life, I'm like, wow, there were a lot of demonstrations. I just didn't see them. Because when I was in the midst of it, I didn't really see it. I went to college on a full ride scholarship. I say God paid for my college. I got a great job when I came out of college. I mean, looking back, that was just something, when I was in it, I just, well, okay, here it is. But as I look back, that was the universe providing for me. And when I was in my 20s and 30s, I didn't realize that. And Richard Rohr even says, and I also wrote, and I want to thank the universe for not having several of those men that I liked back then like me. So that's a major demonstration of faith in my life. So Richard Rohr says in the book, you can only see and understand the earlier stages from a wider perspective of the later stages. So now that I'm like older, I can really look back on those situations and be like, wow, that was a joy of becoming. So I know now that the right and perfect people, the right and perfect opportunities are presenting them to myself. So it's just, it's kind of funny, like when you look back, it's like now as I'm older, I'm like, wow, there were so many demonstrations of faith that I just really didn't see. It's really about surrender, like Reverend Mike was talking about last week, and what it means to have faith. Sometimes we overthink the situation. Like there's paralysis by analysis. You overthinking it until it's like no longer possible, versus just sitting in that quiet, sitting in that car after you leave the prison. There's that quiet, there's that be still moment. When we do the workshops in the prison, we talk about stimulus and response. So what happens when I'm triggered, and what is my response? There's that space, that quiet in the middle that I need to make the decision. I'm going to make that choice. So I think I have a slide here that, let's see, woohoo. So even if, sometimes we just have to take a step. If we feel like our thinking has paralyzed us, even if it's in the wrong direction, if we just take a step anywhere, even if it's, backwards, but at least we're doing something. So Richard Rohr says, we must actually be out of the driver's seat for a while, or we will never learn how to give up control to the real guide. It is a necessary pattern. This kind of suffering is what's meant by necessary suffering. So I found this cute little picture of Jesus driving the car. So us in the back seat, sometimes we just need to be in the back seat and not be that backseat driver, and try not to control the situation. Just go to that surrender, go to that faith, go to that trust. And I was thinking what it was like. I teach a lot of teens and young adults, and God, I can't believe I'm the one saying young adults. Right? Your daughter's a now older adult, mature adult. And I didn't have cell phones. I didn't have TikTok. I didn't have Instagram. I didn't have Snapchat. I didn't have Facebook. All I did was play tennis and do my homework. And I think about now, like writing this, I confess, I went on TikTok part of this sermon. I went on Instagram. There's like keeping focus and staying true. That's where that silence comes in. I'm like, okay, turn it off, put it away, just be here with spirit. And so I was thinking about writing term papers in college. I used to have to go to the library, grab books, take the books back to my dorm room, do note cards, put 2 pieces of typing paper with carbon paper, grab the liquid paper. Jason, do you know what that's like? No, probably not. And then, if I made a mistake, lining up the carriage to get the typing right, and it wasn't as easy. Well, now you just kind of type it, but I think it was better back then. I think it was slower. We didn't have to rush through everything. And Richard Rohr says, he says, there must be, and if we are honest, there will always be at least one situation in our life that we cannot fix, control, explain, change, or even understand. And I was thinking, I feel lucky if there's just one situation in our life that we can't explain. But I do know that the sun will come up. It might be behind clouds. Nothing in life is permanent, bad or good. So even if things are going great, sometimes it will change. And I do know that the seasons change, the leaves fall off the trees, the days get shorter. And I find it fascinating, I remember the first time my gardeners cut my roses down to just stumps. And I was looking at these stumps coming out of the ground going, where are all my beautiful roses? But sure enough, the following spring, they bloomed beautifully. So sometimes we just have to go back to the very basics, just the very beginning. Cut down to stumps, go back to our single meditation, the quiet, and just be there. Be there in that darkness. Right now, this time of year is a great time to reflect, to go into that quiet, because the days are shorter, it's darker, it's colder. I know I like to sit on my couch with my dogs and grab my blanket and just sit there and snuggle and just be. I think in the summer, I come home later, I'm running around, I'm doing a lot more, but this is a beautiful time of the year to just really enjoy the silence. I found this quote, and I thought it was pretty cool. St. John of the Cross taught that God has to work on the soul in secret and in darkness, because if we fully knew what was happening and what mystery, transformation, God, grace will eventually ask of us, we'd either try to take charge or stop the whole process. Right? So sometimes it has to be when we're not really paying attention, or just quiet. I keep coming up with the word quiet right now. When I think of the joy of becoming, I just think of sitting quietly. This is a long quote, so we don't necessarily have to read it, but I'm going to tell you in case anyone wants to take a picture on it later on YouTube. When Marianne Williamson says in A Year of Miracles, when we face the darkness squarely in the eye, in ourselves and in the world, that we begin to at least see the light. And that is the alchemy of personal transformation. In the midst of the deepest, darkest night, when we feel most humbled by life, the faint shadow of our wings begins to appear. Only when we have faced the limits of what we can do does the limitlessness of what God can do begin to dawn on us. It's in the depths of the darkness now confronting our world that will reveal to us the magic of who we truly are. We are spirit, and thus we are more than the world. When we remember that, the world itself bows to our remembrance. So I just thought that was really powerful. So when this is on YouTube, hopefully that'll be there so you can see it. So I would love to say that I have it 100% together. I know that God is all there is. I know that I am one with this source. And I know I can just rest and relax into the joy of becoming. But Nikki last week would be like, you were running down a rabbit hole last week, Nikki. You're not quite 100% together. But what I do know is that the rabbit hole that I was running down last week was only for a day. Okay, maybe it was 2 days. It's not the month. It's not the year. It's just that 2 days. So when I get into what I call mental trauma, I hold on to the knowing, and what Ernest Holmes says, we are not becoming this life, but we are now in and of this life. There's no other life. God is not becoming, God is. God is not growing, God is complete. God is not trying to find out something, God already knows. We already know. There's nothing we have to do. We can relax into the joy who we are and watch out for our magical stinking thinking. So I know some of the thoughts I had are real, some aren't, but I can just rest in the knowing. So our mature years are characterized by a kind of bright sadness and a somber happiness. There is still darkness in the second half of life, in fact, maybe even more. But there's a changed capacity to hold it creatively and with less anxiety. And I know there's people in our community and some of my friends who've gone through such tragic losses and grief and pain, yet they somehow still manage to get out of bed each morning. Some mornings they don't, and that's okay. Get here to church, just maybe having a cup of coffee and reading the newspaper is all they can do that day, and that's okay. But what we've learned is that as we go through these challenges, that we can hold on to our capacity to creatively and to be less anxious about when these things happen, and could be a peace. Ernest says, let us learn to be still and let the truth speak through us, to let the inner light shine. So there's our inner light shining. And I think Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now really says it in the holy waiting. All your attention is on the now. You are present with your whole being, every cell of your body. It is only now that you are truly yourself. So as long as we sit here, right here and now, so how am I right now? Am I okay? Am I healthy? Am I mostly healthy? Am I happy? Am I mostly happy? Yes, I'm good. Can I pay my bills today? I don't have to worry about tomorrow. It's that future fantasizing that gets in the way. So our journey is joy-filled if we take that higher perspective. Once we really recognize that we are God in expression, as Rosalie was saying, we can release these attachments to whatever's going on and sitting in the silence. Still know that I am, as the burning bush. I am who I am, and I am one with this source. So just to finish, because it is 80s Music Day here at Granada Hills, New Order in the song called Truth Faith says, I feel so extraordinary. Something's got a hold on me. I get this feeling I'm in motion. a certain sense of liberty. So as we go through our day, knowing that we are in motion, and just knowing that even in the 80s, when I was listening to Def Leppard, I was also listening to New Order, and I feel so extraordinary because I am one with God, as each and every one here is. Thank you.
I missed the 80s music memo. I'm sorry.